This is the Coin It Podcast, sponsored by CoinCosmo.com. Have fun like a collector. Think like an investor. Whether you're just a hobbyist or looking for an alternative investment with rare coins, paper money, NFTs, or art, your host, Charles Jonath, is covering it all. Now your host, Charles Jonath.
Okay, so we're here with Isaiah Hageman. Isaiah is an e-learning instructor for the ANA. He's also a dealer. He's a young and up-and-coming guy in the business, doing a great job, man. And he's out on Instagram. It's VAMs Plus. I don't know if you know of him. Probably some of you follow him. So what's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing well, Charles. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, likewise, man. It's good to have you on. I seen you obviously on Instagram, and you're putting out there, and you're a young guy, and you got all the way up to doing like very involved with the ANA, right? Like doing e-learning and all that.
Yep.
How did that all come about?
Well, so with the e-learning, I did a presentation on detection of counterfeit slabs. And so that spawned out of a couple years of doing research. When I started in VAMs and errors and that kind of stuff. And then when I got comfortable doing that and wanted to try something new, so I started looking around, and so I was seeing books on counterfeit coins and paper money, but I didn't see anything on counterfeit slabs. And so that spawned into years of research and then presentation for the ANA. I've done the same thing for local coin clubs and that kind of stuff. But the ANA e-learning was definitely the top of my list for that.
That's awesome. Did you actually do the counterfeit detection course as a student, or?
I have not. A lot of people ask me that. I have not. I was at Summer Seminar a couple years ago, and I did the modern minting process.
Oh, okay.
And if I get back out to seminars at some point, hopefully next year, I do want to take that course.
Really? Yeah. Be cool. I would imagine. I mean, now you're like more on the teaching end of things, but still it's interesting to see just what they say, and then they go through the process, and maybe if there's anything you could add or whatever, but that's cool. So you got into air slabs. It's very interesting. Like, I would imagine now that some of them are going to get pretty good. I know I've seen one that they were saying that were coming from China that looked pretty accurate. And they actually showed a serial number, but there was a discrepancy. Like when you looked up the coin, it was not the right coin. But I would imagine, obviously, they're going to wind up getting very close, right? Or what do you see there?
I mean, without going into too much detail, I mean, I could talk. I could talk for hours.
No, go into detail, please. That's what this is for.
Without stretching this out into a 4-hour talk and slides that I would inevitably start pulling up. Basically, some of the I've seen some really good ones that are in-house grading service, in-house teaching tools for their graders, and I've seen some that are so bad I'm just like, if you've ever seen a slab, this is not what it looks like.
Right away.
I mean, typical things I look at: label color, font, how bold the text is, and some of these slabs. I mean, I've seen real coins and fake slabs. I've seen fake coins and fake slabs, and then there's the occasional fake coin and a real slab. And that just goes to show you, like, a lot of people say buy the coin, not the holder. Well, you could be. It's very little chance, but it is out there. You could be buying a real coin and a fake holder, and I've seen that before.
Wow.
So I tell people buy them both. Yeah.
Kind of have to take both into account, right? Yeah, it's so true. But I've seen like you, a bit of like a mix of the slabs, the fake ones, and usually you can tell right away. Like there's just if you're so used to looking at PCGS slabs like us, it's just your eye knows it right away, because you're like, oh man, this is bad print, This is just not a slab at all. I hold so many of them. My hand doesn't even feel like the same, But to the untrained eye, like, they could easily fool somebody. But then the question is like, well, if you don't know coins anyways, like, are you going to be more inclined to give them more money because it's in a fake slab, or do they really care? I mean, I don't know what the thought process is there in these counterfeiters. Are they trying to they're trying to counterfeit coin people? you think?
Well, I mean, counterfeit coins themselves have been around. I mean, they've been around almost as long as real coins have been around. I mean, they've been,
Right.
people have been faking coins ever since they've been making coins.
Right.
Fake slabs really came up, and they came to it. They came to reality and the mass market, I would say, within the last 10 years with technology, because early 2000, and this is kind of why we never, like, for example, I never see old green holders of PCGS, the Rattlers, the Fatties. I never see those counterfeited. I can't tell you the last time I saw one that was a counterfeit, because the technology, when those were made, the technology just wasn't there for people to make, to make a fake. In the last 10 years, we've seen an explosion of them, but that's just because the market's trending upwards. More people are getting interested, and slabs are a lot more widely available than they used to be.
Right.
And so I think I can't speak, I'm not a counterfeiter myself, so I can't speak to the exact motive. But to my mind, the motive, or at least the general motive to make a fake, would probably just be to get more bulk coins passed. You see a box of 20 Morgan dollars. Well, they go on eBay and they put up a box of 20 Morgans, just common generic dates, and they sell them cheap, but they throw in 2 or 3 fakes in a box of 20. You get somebody that's buying these, you get a big company that's buying these by the thousands. They're not going to sit and piece through every single dollar when they get the shipment in, if they buy 5,000 of these. So counterfeiters can go, they'll go on eBay or they'll go on whatever, and they'll put 2 or 3 of them in. And that might only be making $150 or, $200 there. But if they do that enough, it really adds up.
Yeah. I could see how that could really take a hit, like, especially like a wholesaler, like you're saying. Although I would imagine the wholesalers buy from other, I know Stacks does a lot. I mean, the auction houses do a wholesale business, Heritage too, but Stacks does a lot of wholesale too, in the bullion and just general slabs, the 20s. Like, if you want a bunch of dollars in XF or better, you could get them wholesale from Stacks.
Right. And they're always incredibly good about it. But a lot of times what I'm seeing, especially with, the uptick of, we'll just say, common date generic Morgans or Saints and 65 as commodities, we're seeing, these brokers on Wall Street and investment firms buying these as commodities, because that's what, let's be honest, half of them trade like that. And that's where they're getting burned.
So it's newer guys coming in.
Right. I've known a few older dealers that have slipped up and accidentally gotten counterfeit slabs, but really it's the new guys that are coming in, and for a lot of people, if you don't pass through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of slabs, if you only handle a few, or if you deal mostly in raw coins, you're less inclined to think about it being a fake, unless that's all. If all you look at is slabs, then it's going to be in the forefront of your mind. But if you only do 1 or 2 slabs a month, it's not, you're not going to think about, oh, is this a fake? And they're not really out there that much, but they are out there enough that I see them on eBay all the time, because I'm looking for them to get eBay to take them down.
Really? Yeah.
I've seen in the past 5 years, I've seen 1 or 2 fake slabs at a show. I mean, that weren't mine, but yeah, they're out there, but it's not really too much of a cause for concern if you know who you're buying from.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. I haven't encountered them frequently at all. And if they do, they used, the ones I would see would come in, they try to come into the shop or local stores, and you just politely tell them that, like, these are actually fake slabs, and they're like, oh yeah, okay, we didn't know, and then they walk out. But other than that, I haven't really had to deal with it. But it's interesting, and I'm curious, because now I would imagine that the technology is getting better. They could start doing that with rare coins. That's kind of a fear. Where are mostly these slabs are coming out of China, or?
Yeah.
Is it someplace else?
We haven't really pinpointed where exactly. We know they're coming from that area, whether it's China, Japan, Korea, you know, we know they're coming somewhere out of there, but we don't know exactly. I can tell you, I have a dealer buddy that's over in Hong Kong, and he said that, their Chinese dragon dollar, for example, is as popular, if not more popular, than our Morgan dollar. And because of that, because they're like, I can go to my local shop and get a Morgan dollar, just a circulated one for 50, $60.
Right.
If I want an Unk one, I can get it for, 65, 70. Well, dragon dollars are multiples of that. The cheapest one runs multiples of that. And a lot of people can't afford that, just because they like the heritage and the culture behind it.
Sure.
So they're openly buying and selling these fakes out on the street, both slabbed and raw fakes. And nobody cares over there. But what happens is, somebody goes on vacation, they pick up a couple, they bring them back here, then they walk into a coin shop or, they go on eBay. And so a lot of the fakes that I see are, they're coming from, they're coming off of eBay, or they're coming off from all those, all those Chinese websites. You can get, Wish and all those, you can get just about anything on.
Right.
But that's really where they're coming from. I can't tell you how many fake, like, kangaroo bars or pant bars or whatever, because they come off of Wish. I've ordered a couple just for my own study off of there, but they're dirt cheap. You can get, these fake 1 ounce gold pant bars for like $20-$30. Wait 2 months, they come in, and I have a couple just in house in my safe for my own study and education. But
sure, yeah.
I've known people they've walked up to my table at shows, only a couple times, but they've walked up and they've handed it to me because they were curious, and had dealers, come up to me with stuff, and it all originates off of these Chinese websites, and then they get shipped in here, they get put on eBay and come in, or they walk through customs, because customs they're not looking for a fake PCGS slab. They're not looking for a fake PAMP gold bar. They're not testing. They're looking for fake coins, and they're looking for North Korean stuff, and the stuff that's
weapons,
illegal.
drugs,
right. They're not really looking for, that's a fake PCGS slab, we're going to pull that.
Yeah.
They should, but they're not trained enough to do that.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to know. Mm-hmm. The amount of stuff that probably tries to come over the border has just got to be astronomical.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine it's hard to keep up for it, but that's why it's good to go out there and do what you're doing, and then as long as there's education on this stuff and people could see the examples, I think, they could train their eye a bit and avoid a lot of those pitfalls that normally they wouldn't.
Yeah. Education is a big thing. I gave the e-learning presentation. What was that? I think 2 years ago ish. 2 or 3 years ago. And everybody's watching that presentation, and everybody's starting to learn about these slabs. That's also to say counterfeiters are watching my presentation.
Right.
In the past 3 years, I did that. And then I was updating the presentation for a local club about 2 months ago, and just pulling some new images, updating images in the slideshow, putting more in my database. And I started to notice some of the things that I said in my e-learning, they've caught on to that. One example being, there's those little plastic molding circles that I think there's either 4 or 6 of them on a more modern PCGS slab, about 2005 to present. And so what happened was, when I did the e-learning, I had said, those circles are never on fakes. If you've got the circles, that's a legit slab. Well, in the past 3 years, counterfeiters have heard that, and they've started doing those circles. So I've told a couple coin clubs now, you can't I said this 3 years ago, and it was true back then, but it's no longer true. You can't go off of the circles alone. And that shocked a couple of the local dealers around where I am. It shocked them, because They thought that was, that was a surefire way to know that it was real. Well, counterfeiters have caught on, and you can't go by those circles anymore. There are different things that they've caught on to from my research and presentations and the research of others that we've made public. They've caught on to stuff, and they've been changing it to keep up with us. Wow. Now, I don't think they're ever gonna get to figuring out how like the NFC chip works. And there's a couple different, there's different features of both companies that the public doesn't know about that I don't think they'll ever find. Right. But anything that you can find, they are finding and they are fixing. So they're getting better, but research is also, still one step ahead of them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the chip it makes things incredibly difficult. And I think they already have a tough time. They seem to not be able to get the serial numbers accurate, or the serial number will work, but it's not the same coin,
mm-hmm. Yep. It's either that or it's the top 3 things that I see every single counterfeit slab has. It's got the wrong barcode. So it's either not going to scan correctly or it's not going to scan at all. The certification number is either copied off of the real coin, but it's the wrong holder generation.
Right.
Thank goodness for Heritage and Stax photos that you can that you can reference.
Yeah.
Or it's the label color, whether it's too dark, too light. It's a puke green color instead of a more brown on NGC.
Right.
It's too light of a blue on PCGS. It's too dark of a blue. They print the gold shield instead of actually having the nice glitter. Little tip-offs like that they mess up consistently every single time. And so once you get to know what they mess up a lot, you can pinpoint it. One slab, and it's like a needle in a haystack, but you can pinpoint that needle
98%
right away.
Of the time,
because there's certain things they do wrong every single time.
What's interesting? I wonder if it would be easier for them to counterfeit the old green holders.
Well, I can't tell you how many times I've told people that the rattlers, the fatties, the old green holders, there's very little security in those.
Right.
I mean, there's the hologram,
don't for some
like
reason.
The rattler.
They try to
they don't
knock off the modern ones. I don't either. I don't know.
There are counterfeit rattlers that exist. I've seen Scott Travers in his book. Oh, what's it called? The Coin Collector's Survival Manual. I think that's what it is. In his book, he's got photos of a counterfeit rattler. But you can tell right away just by looking at the text on the back of the label. You can tell right away because they've got the serifs on, I think it's the E wrong. But for some reason, they just don't go for those older holders. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know. That baffles me because I would think they're much easier to knock off to get the print right and everything like that. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I guess they don't. It's just one of those things. But you're part of the force that's helping with it. And if once these guys get into researching a little bit better, I think anyone who's ever done cataloging before, you search the pedigree a little bit, and like you say, you could go on the auction mm-hmm. sites and then trace the history of these for rare coins. At least it's the generic ones I think that pass by. Like a lot of those will hit you, like those big wholesalers that just buy generic slabs. Right. And I think that's really where the danger lies. Like they mm-hmm. can really, because it adds up. You're buying a batch of wholesale consistently. You go through and you're like, oh man, 20% of my inventory is fake. That could be a problem,
Right. Now, the other thing with it is I've never seen an $1804 in a fake holder. I've never seen a 13 nickel in a fake holder. It's not those, it's not the big things like that. Like you think, oh, they're counterfeiting all these, crazy expensive things. They're not, because if you can trace it down like that, if you've got a pedigree and you can trace it like that, they're not going to do it because they'll never get away with it.
Right.
They're doing 14D Lincoln cents, or they're doing 93S dollars, or they're doing 89cc dollars. It's still, or they're doing $17.99. It's it's key dates, but it's key dates that aren't like, oh, there's only 13 of these in existence.
Right. They're accessible.
It's the key dates. It's the key dates that you can get. They're not cheap, but you can get them with, with a little bit of searching.
Right. Right. Wow. That's interesting, man. So how did you get into all the coins and everything? Like, take us back to the beginning. What got you into all this?
Yeah, well, the beginning I was just writing this up for Coin World earlier this afternoon.
Really?
Beginning goes all the way back, almost 10 years now, back to 2013. I was 12 years old and had just, I was on a trip that summer of 2013 with my grandparents in DC. And we took a tour of the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. And That was super cool. Got me hooked. I mean, we were just walking down the sidewalk and happened to see it as we were walking. I mean, we're actually going to, I don't know, it was some other museum down there, but we took a detour through the BEP, and that got me hooked on that. So later that year, early 2014, I picked up a red book, just flipping through, looking at the pictures. At that point, I had no idea where to buy coins. I didn't, at 13 years old, I had no idea that eBay existed. My world consisted of collecting model trains and thumbing through the red book, just looking at pictures and memorizing vintages.
Wow, cool. So you actually were into trains then too, like what?
Yeah.
Did you ever get like the steam ones and all that, or?
No, I mostly collected just, die cast, HO scale, just collected that stuff. I was never into stamps. I had a baseball card collection that my dad gave me. Wasn't terribly interested in that. Right. But I mean, then I got into coins.
That was it, right?
Inherited 70 some wheat pennies, couple silver dimes, a silver round, and that got me hooked.
Wow.
And from there, it for lack of a better term, it blew up. Started collecting, started getting into Morgan dollars, into errors. I mean, errors piqued my interest right away. I've always liked the weird one-offs, the mistake coins.
Really?
So errors right away pulled my interest, got me hooked. 2017 came around and I started dealing. Freshman year of college in 2019, I kind of slacked off on collecting. College bills started hitting. I went broke as a college student. Then COVID hit and I got back in, got in full swing. And that's when I started doing, right about the time COVID hit is really when I started barreling down on counterfeit slab research. Wow. And from there, it's a road that I'll probably never get off of.
Yeah. You went down the rabbit hole and that's it. But that's good, man. That's a real good focus, actually. And it's a necessary focus. I think
absolutely
it's a whole thing that needs to be studied, and there's always something new because, like you said, like these counterfeiters are trying to be one step ahead if they can. Like once enough people identify a certain discrepancy in the holder, then they're going to fix that and then move on to something.
I mean, I think the key word being that they want to get one step ahead. And the truth of the matter is they're never going to get ahead of us.
Yeah.
Just by the sheer amount of counterfeits that we find and we report and we study from eBay. I mean, from eBay alone, we have the Dark Side is a roundtable group on Facebook that I'm a part of. And we'll sit and we'll go through eBay. I mean, just generic, gold bullion or Morgan dollar searches. And I mean, if you really look for these, you'll find fakes every once in a while, but we'll have eBay pull them down sometimes within minutes of us reporting them. So we try to pull as many as we can. And I mean, I see them a couple a day, but that's because a lot of people think, oh, you see a couple a day. That's horrible. You got to understand there's a couple hundred of us in this group and we're scrolling through hundreds of thousands of listings just to find one or two. So they're really not out there. You just have to keep your eyes open.
Yeah. That's good that you guys do that though, man. It helps out the overall collecting community. I wanted to ask you because there's this guy who is selling coins on Etsy that are literally just change and he's marking them up for high prices. Have you heard of this guy?
There's a lot of people that do that kind of thing. I've never known Etsy to be much of a coin market. I'm actually a little surprised.
It's not.
A coin
That's
market
the thing.
there.
It's a makers it's for artisans and craftspeople.
Right.
Mainly.
So that surprises me that coins could even be on there in the first place. Heck, my website doesn't even sell coins. I'm not set up to sell on there yet. I usually just wholesale on Facebook.
Yeah.
But guys like him selling pocket change on Etsy, they're doing it on eBay, they're doing it on, you name it, online selling platform, Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. Oh boy, don't even get me started on Craigslist.
Well, the thing is,
they're doing it, and hey, I mean, pocket change is better than fake stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy because what happens is Etsy's such a big site. So it's got, Google gives it priority. So when you search for rare coins, guess what comes up? Like in the search results, these are some of the first ones out there, and they're like $15,000 for a 1957 penny.
Well, people look at the red book and they see, oh, MS67 is, 10 grand. Well, my coin's obviously a 68. So I'm going to mark it up over that. Even though it's a beat to crap wheat cent that's been run over by a train.
It's unbelievable. And like that, the scary thing is I remember clicking on this guy's account or whatever, and it said like 2 sales. I'm like, oh man.
Huh.
I don't know. It's just bad.
I mean, on eBay, it's really no secret when stuff like that happens on eBay, a lot of times it's either money laundering or something similar to that. I mean, that's not to say that every single person doing that, some people legitimately believe that they have a $1 million coin that they pulled out of their pocket change. And yeah, that does happen every once in a while, but your 1962 Lincoln cent that's been circulated and run over is not worth $1 million.
Yeah. Right.
But people don't like to hear. I mean, some people just don't like to hear that's what it's worth.
Yeah, there's that too, and that's a whole other thing. Like there's a lot of people that think that they have rare stuff, but they're not actually rare. And I feel like that's the problem with people that are trying to get into numismatics that want to buy coins. They see it as like a good way to have a hobby and then to save money and then actually invest.
And they see some of the
prices. And then they get caught up in coins that they think that they're rare, but they're not actually rare, and they wind up spending a lot of money on. They walk out with maybe 2 boxes of coins, but then when you go to sell them, they lose because they're just they're overpriced. They mark them up like crazy. They're not worth the spread, and then they have a complete bad experience, and then they're totally turned off to our industry.
Right. I mean, you really and this is why I've been doing. This is one reason why I've been doing counterfeit slab research. I mean, a lot of people say buy the book before you buy the coin. Yeah, that's true. That only goes so far.
Right.
There have been multiple times where I've had to weed out books from my numismatic library, because if you buy every book before you start buying the coin, your house is going to be full of books because there are so many different series to collect. Yeah. I mean, ancient coins and, you name it. If you start buying books or everything now with the internet, with everything, with all of the free stuff like the numismatic portal and the ANA library and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing.
The local libraries it's unbelievable how many coin books my local library has.
Really? Wow.
But you go on the NNP. Unfortunately, not many people know about
that site is great. I mean, look at the amount of free books it has on there. Yeah, a lot of them are older,
and they're archiving so many older publications
that's the thing. Yeah,
you can't get your hands on.
Right.
I'm working on writing a book on sample slabs, and so the last copy of it I sent it off and had them put a copy of it in their archives. The next edition I'm hoping to have this summer done and printed. That'll be good. I'll send them a copy of that. But there's just so many books on the numismatic portal. If people knew how much free information is on there,
be on it all the time.
You wouldn't have to buy every single book anymore, because you could just go on that and look at, these 50, 60-year-old reference guides that were done up when people first started cataloging.
There's incredible information in there too. Like you could hit, what it's really good for is tracing pedigree too,
Oh yeah.
Because you can, a lot of times where the auction's dead end, you could go back further with these references, with these reference catalogs.
Instead of having all these old, Bowers and Morena catalogs from the 70s, you can go back even farther to I don't know who, all the old timers from, Waite Raymond and all the old timers from the 20s and 30s, and get all those old catalogs, Director of the Mint reports from the 1880s. You can look through those and trace pedigrees. I was on the CAC forums yesterday and was reading it was a fascinating story about 1878 S. Morgan specimen strike that they traced all the way back to the Director of the Mint back in 78 when he struck the coin for the president as a special presentation piece. Wow. And they've traced the pedigree all the way through there to this guy who bought it in, I think he said 2015.
That's
and it's in a PCGS specimen holder with CAC sticker. Wow. It's just unbelievable. The coin is unbelievable. What's even better is the pedigree that you can trace back all the way to the exact guy that struck it for the president.
Well, that's what's cool, like about the older coins that are great nice coins. When you buy rare coins that have pedigree like that, you're buying these coins that have been collected for so many years. So it's not, these are things that have had demand for so long. It's not like it's some fly-by-night thing, There's real history there to the stuff.
And that's why I like collecting, another thing I like collecting is low balls. So I'll collect, the most worn coins I can get my hands on that are straight graded. So your poor ones, your fair twos. And usually those are, they're cheap as dirt because nobody cares about, people are starting to care about them now with the low ball registry sets. But, you get a fair two and AG3, nobody wants those in the registry, because if you got a poor one, that's the best for your low ball registry.
But I love not every fair two is the same though. Sometimes they look a little bit, if they're low grade like that, but you could still make them out, I think it's still cool, especially a rare one.
And I love collecting that kind of stuff. Just imagining, who held this in their hand, who spent it, what did they buy with it? Yeah. You've got a dime from 1800 that's in about good 3, good 4. I just love thinking
seen everything.
How many people spent this? How many people bought a drink with it, bought a loaf of bread? How many people just gave it to their kid as a birthday present? And just thinking about the history and who might have held that piece, it's just incredible. Right. That's what I love about coin collecting is it's the history. It's the art too. French medals are a fun thing for me to collect. I love the art on them, but just the history behind coins and the design and all that, it's just fascinating.
Yeah, it's true. And you know what? Coins are a tangible element for the history of monetary policy.
Mm-hmm.
That's money.org, right? That's why they call it. It's the history of money. It's very cool.
It really is.
I didn't know you were into sample slabs like that though. I got to send you mine. I have some of the original ones, like in the OG holders.
Yep. Well, they call
them. Are those? Do people collect? People collect them now. I heard, right?
Oh, yeah. So I started. There's a guy on Instagram as well named David Schwager. He and I are great friends. He's out in California. Oh, he has been collecting samples forever.
Really?
So samples really, they've been around ever since the grading services started making.
That's how I got them.
Making holders. We've got Rattler samples, we've got Fatty samples, but people have been collecting them. They started out, and for people, there's not everybody knows what a sample is, but it's literally you go into the supermarket and somebody hands you, a cracker with the new salsa, or a chip with the new salsa that they're making, and they want you to try it.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Sample slab you go to a show, yeah, you can ask PCGS. I know they usually have them at all the big shows. NGC sometimes does.
They still give out samples?
It's a little known fact. If you go to, World's Fair of Money, fun show, I think they give them out at Baltimore. I think they give them out at Long Beach. You go up to their table, and if you go early enough in the show, chances are they'll have a sample for you. Wow. Every show I go to, I make it a point to stop and ask, because it never, sometimes they say no, it doesn't hurt to ask. And a lot of times, the PCGS set registry lunch, they have a special sample for that.
Really?
Summer seminar going on right now. The grading 2, the advanced grading class, they made special samples just for the grading class.
Yeah. And without the grades,
right. Well, I love collecting samples, because you can get, I've got a couple that are unique. I've got a couple that are, 1 of 10, 1 of 15 issued. Wow. Incredible rarity, but very low cost. So
how do you trace the population of samples and all that? You get that from the grading companies,
right? Or? Yeah, I mean, sometimes I just have to ask them. I'm good friends with Steve Feltner over at PCGS. One of my buddies is an ex-NGC grader, and he's got some friends there. So I'll either call up Steve, I'll email Steve, or I'll call up my buddy that used to work for NGC, so he can find out. But a lot of times with NGC, because their cert numbers on samples are actually legitimate numbers, whereas PCGS, they'll do a run of 500 with the same number.
Right.
NGC divvies it out, so you can run based on their database online. You can see how many. PCGS, if it's not on the label, a lot of times it'll be on the label, but sometimes you just have to ask.
That's cool.
And they're so limited that you can get incredible rarity.
I believe it, yeah, because they probably just made them for like a smaller show or something like that when they were first starting out. Right. And that's how you get people to grade more of their coins. Like, it was a challenge in the beginning.
Well, and that's how PCGS started out with silver Roosevelt dimes in the Rattlers. The first PCGS sample was they were dated in the 60s, Roosevelt dimes in 64, 65 holders that said sample on them.
Right.
The first ones had a solid 0 serial number. Then they switched. A little bit later on, they switched and they started doing 7, 5 zeros, and then 2, 3 as the serial number. Did that for a while.
I gotta check mine.
But that was a way for them to say, like, here's a piece. This shows what our holder looks like.
Right.
So they're honestly that, like, the solid 0 Rattlers, the solid 0 serials on Rattlers for the samples. I would consider those, honestly, they could be considered prototypes, mass-produced prototypes of the new holder, because those were the first samples that were made. I don't remember what exactly the first NGC sample was. I think it was one of the black cores. But yeah, they make them, they give them out. I mean, they give them out to kids all the time. Long Beach shows, they have a set registry for the Long Beach samples that they give to the kids.
That's so cool.
But they give them out, get people, interested. And then there's the nut jobs like me that collect them, and there's a whole market for them.
Yeah, that's so fun. I wonder if they thought that. They're like, will people collect these one day? Who knows? Probably.
I don't think they did it first.
I don't think so, right?
Annex, ever since the begining, Annex has said sample not for resale, and they still put that on the back of the holder. I don't know why. And the funny thing is, I've tried listing Annex samples there's a Facebook group I tried, and the admins took the post down and said, you can't sell that. It says not for resale. I'm like, oh boy, somebody doesn't know what a sample is. But PCGS, NGC, I mean, they know that they know that they're going to get sold.
Yeah.
The PCGS luncheon slabs, they get sold all the time. I mean, A&A last year, I went to it, got the sample. I was talking to people at the table, mentioned that I was a sample collector. Well, when we walked out, they asked if I wanted to buy their slabs, and I said, absolutely.
That's so cool.
because I know, I know how limited they are.
That's interesting as well. But how do you price that stuff?
It's whatever somebody's willing to pay. I
Right.
mean, I can tell you that. So the PCGS 30th or 35th anniversary medals, we had the quarterly special and we had the lunch and we had the ones they gave to employees. And then there were the cheap ones that Atmex sold. I created a market in them. For day one, they started handing out the lunch slabs, made a market doing those, had a couple of dealers walk up to me at the show because they knew I was buying them. I created the market for them. eBay threw some up on eBay for no reserve auctions, and they took off.
Wow.
So it's the newer samples. There's a couple of us, myself, Dave Schwager, a couple other guys that were the market makers in these because we'll buy them sight unseen just based on, this is what the label says. Right. Okay, we'll buy them sight unseen and then price them out, put them on eBay, get some sold listings going. And there you go. You've got a baseline.
That's so cool. And then they buy them. I wonder who's buying you probably know who's buying them from you on eBay too, huh?
Well, there's a couple people on Instagram.
Don't like them.
There's one guy on Instagram, anytime I get certain older NGC slabs, he snaps them up.
Yeah.
There's another guy that snaps up all of my PCGS samples.
That's cool. It's nostalgia too, that's a thing.
Oh, it's grading service history. And I love how much history from the grade. I mean, classic example is the PCGS prototype that Frank Saywin coin on Instagram that he had on Great Collections. I mean, that thing sold for almost 10 grand. Wow. So and I was astounded at how much that sold for, but that's grading service history.
That's crazy.
It could be, it's a prototype. It could be considered a sample. It's definitely a prototype. It was a really cool piece. If I had the budget, I would have picked it up, but I don't have the budget for $9,500.
Yeah. I don't blame you. No, for sure, man. I know. I remember as a kid going, to the Long Beach show and then going to get those samples. I used to try and get as many of them as I could.
Yeah. Well, and now they have a registry set specifically for the kids to collect them.
It's awesome.
Which I think is awesome because it gets kids collecting. Yeah, exactly. Honestly, it creates a market in them because there are some people, a couple friends of mine that are on that registry. They're avidly buying them and hoarding them so that they can have the most complete registry of that.
It's cool stuff, man. So with VAMs, why VAMs Plus? Did you get into like varieties of Morgan dollars or?
Yeah, well, my business VAMs Plus goes back to 2017 when I really started dealing, and I built my business on VAMs and errors. Hence VAMs Plus. My original logo had a Morgan dollar on the left side and an error coin on the right side for VAMs Plus to say, so that without telling people this is what I specialize in, they could, most people can see right off the bat, oh, he does VAMs and he does error coins. And from there, nobody else has that name. So it just kind of stuck and I rolled with it.
That's good, man. Like, cause there's not that many people that do errors and the guys been doing a long time, but you need new people in to sort of make up these little niche markets of numismatics.
Right. Yeah. Fred Weinberg, now retired, error collector and huge dealer. He and I have become good friends. Last year at A&A, there's words gone around about the guy that offered Fred $1,000 for his cricket. That was me. I offered Fred $1,000 for his cricket slab at the show last year. Ian Russell still remembers that. And Fred still jokes about it at his office about me offering him $1,000 for a dead cricket and a piece of plastic.
I see that too. Online.
And here's the thing is people thought I was crazy when I was counting out hundreds to offer him $1,000 for it at the show. People thought I was crazy. Fred thought I was crazy. He sent it to Great Collections. It goes for $6,000. I sent him an email and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. I feel bad now offering you $1,000 when it went for 6. And he said, no, he said,
Gave me the idea.
he's like, I thought you were crazy. I thought you were offering me way too much.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it was made up as a joke for him.
It's probably like, this kid's going to give me $1,000. He probably felt bad. He's like, no, forget it, kid. Collect something else.
Yeah, no. And so we became good friends on that. And
wow. That's a great story.
People at shows, I go to the show and, bigger shows, and people are like, oh, you're the guy that offered Fred $1,000 for the cricket. They call me the Slab King for a reason.
That's great, man. That's cool. I'm glad. It makes me happy to see like young guys like you getting in the business and who are not only just like that have the drive and love coins, but they're very knowledgeable. And you took the time to like do all the research and get really involved in the coin community in general. And then, reach out to the older dealers and make friends with them. I mean, that's so cool, man. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. And the Instagram community is also a really good way to connect younger collectors. I know I've been on Instagram in coins since 2015. And when I got on, it was a very slim amount of people on Instagram. It was not a community like it is today. It was just, it was like 10 or 15 guys that followed each other, and we showed off coins to each other. And then 2018 came around with the beginnings of Silver Degenerates with Stacking NYC,
right,
and
Tommy,
General Lawn Man and Pops, and that whole thing took off.
They're the whole bully. You know what? I loved when that happened, because to me, those are the guys that you see all the time in the coin shop that like hang around, like that they'll come in, that they're stackers. They'll buy they'll buy a couple rounds or whatever a week, or some Eagles. And they just found a community online.
Yeah, and I really think at the beginning of Silver Degenerates, Tommy did a great job building it up, because I think that's what made the coin community on Instagram
still doing
what it was. And it's exploding. I mean, with all of the meetups, when we were down at Fun back in January, like 35 of us got together at the Fun show, went out to dinner together, had awesome, a lot of fun. But it's that kind of thing where there's a lot of followers, a lot of my followers, a lot of the people that I follow on Instagram. I've never met them in person. But then there's that core group of both, younger people my age, and then there's also older folks that are on Instagram. We get together a couple times a year. Every major show, we make it a point to go out to dinner all together.
That's great.
Tommy organizes the meetups all over the country.
Yeah, he's good with that. He did one here in Vegas for the CK shows, and it was good. We had a good. He made his own badges and everything like that. It was cool. But it takes someone like that to do that, to put in the work.
And then that's really what builds the community. I mean, we have a really strong community that I don't think you can find in any other hobby. There's no other hobby that has, that has the camaraderie and the community of hundreds of people getting together in person, having fun, and then they get online and they're on live streams and they're having fun and they're playing games, and you just can't find that anywhere else.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's so cool. I didn't even realize, in a way I'm proud, but I kind of get it though, because I think we're such a small community. You know what I mean? Like when you find someone that's into coins, you're like, oh my God, well, just sit, and now we spend 2-3 hours talking.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, it is small, but once you get to know people, I always tell when I go to a big show, when I went to Fun, I'll be going to A&A, in 2 months. And, the week before I say, hey, I'm going to be at A&A. This is my table number that I'll be set up at. If you want to go out to dinner, let's get lunch, let's get dinner. Let's arrange. There's going to be at A&A. I don't know if it's going to be Wednesday or Thursday night. We're going to have a slab collector meet up. It's going to be in the lobby of the Hyatt attached to the convention center.
Nice.
You know, we'll get together, and it's an open invite. Anybody that wants to come talk slabs, you know, buy, sell, trade, just hang out, have a good time. We'll be there, you know, we'll be there for an hour or so. A lot of times, most of us go out to dinner after, and, you know, then we see each other on Instagram. But it's just a great way to connect faces and names. You know, I have people walk up to my table all the time at a big show. Oh, you know, you're so-and-so
VAMs
on
Plus.
Instagram, you're so-and-so on Facebook.
Yeah, it's true.
That I've, you know, I see, we go by usernames all the time on, you know, we're in live streams. I jump on a live stream. Oh, VAMs is here and whatnot. But then I go to a show, and, you know, people walk up to me and they actually introduce themselves like, oh, it's, you know, it's great to connect a face to the name online, because that's what builds community.
It's so true. Yeah, it's happening. It's happening in a big way. And I think it's going to, you know, now because of the internet, I was having this conversation with Miles Standish, and, you know, we were talking a bit about it. And like, you know, I was thinking back, because I'm like, part of me is still, because I grew up in the business, like part of me is thinking to what the old guys used to say. And a lot of guys used to say, you know, like, oh, you know, back in the 50s, it was a good time, retail time for coins and all that. But, you know, Miles is like, no, the best time to be in coins is now. Yeah, and then it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, you're right. I mean, if you think about it with the internet and the community aspect that's happening right now on Instagram, because it's such a good tool, because it emphasizes the visual, you know, it just, I don't know, it helped connect a lot of people that probably otherwise wouldn't have seen each other that often, especially now. I feel like in the last 10 years or so, because on the West Coast, not a lot of the East Coast guys were coming to the Long Beach show as much anymore.
Right. I mean, that's why I love that, you know, for example, A&A, 4 out of 5 years, it's going to be in Chicago. It's a good central location.
Yeah, I agree.
I know I wasn't going to make it out to Denver every year for the show.
Yeah, no, it's hard.
But especially in the past couple of years with COVID and everything, being online and having this online platform to talk and connect, but then also having the shows to actually see each other and connect in person, it's huge. And There are not many other hobbies that you can have. You know, I hardly ever see baseball card guys and stamp guys on Instagram. In fact, I don't remember the last time I ever saw a stamp guy on Instagram.
You know what? It's probably because there's so many of them, though. You know, like there's tons of these guys that collect cards and all that. And
but
they do have their own shows, but you're right. The community is just not as strong. Mm-hmm. I wonder why that is. I don't know if it's because of the sheer size, or they haven't caught on to that yet. I don't know.
I mean, social media is one of the last places you'd think to find, you know, hobbies and collectibles. But once you get into the community, you find out how close we are and how connected we are. You know, somebody has a loved one pass away, community steps in. Somebody gets in a car accident or they get sick. You know, we'd have a charity auction.
It's true.
You know, I think this is the 4th year Tommy's doing his stacker essay contest, which, I mean, I'll be entering. This will be the last year I can enter it. I'll be entering later this summer. And it's a fantastic way to help out, you know, high school and college kids meet their bills while collecting.
That's cool, man.
And then on the flip side, it's awesome, you know, to donate a piece and have, you know, get on an auction, you know, one of Tommy's auctions, and auction a piece off with the benefits going towards that, you know, that contest, or going to help somebody that needs it.
Definitely. That's true, man. You know, you're right. You know, you got me thinking. That's true. I think, you know, it's good. I'm glad to see that this is happening in our community, and I'm just looking, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing more of it and newer guys coming in, and it's just cool, man. It's cool to see. So are you going to be at this fun show?
I won't be at Summer Fun. Plane tickets too expensive. When I was asked to go down and work a table, but can't make it work. So I will be at A&A. I was set up at a table. That's table number to be determined, but I'll be at A&A. I was at Central States back in April. I'm going to Winter Fun in January, you know.
Nice. Got to do that. The Winter Fun's the best, man. I missed it this year, but I'm going to be next year. God willing. Yeah, man. Well, that's great. It was awesome talking to you, Isaiah. I'm glad you came on. Like, I'm glad we finally made it happen.
Yeah, this has been a little bit in the making with, you know, my crazy work schedule and whatnot. So I'm glad we had a chance to talk.
That's awesome, man. Well, I look forward to seeing you in person sometime soon. And thank you for everything. And I'll talk to you soon. All right.
Absolutely. Man. Thank you.
Later. Take it easy.